This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices, just not the Anom phone. You can get a special price right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. Had to tie that one back together. Oh my goodness. All right. So you and I talked off air after the last show about an interesting thing you've gotten into recently. And now you're going to tell all of us about it, right, Avram?
Yes. So the time has come. And if you've heard about 3D printing, but you haven't made the jump yet into actually doing any, this could be a great time to do it. We just started doing a fair amount of 3D printing coverage on Tom's Hardware, and I got a 3D printer the other day for the first time. I should be embarrassed to admit this is the first time I've had a 3D printer, but it is really at a point now where they're really quite easy to use, very inexpensive, and a lot of fun. So here's my 3D printer. I'm not saying this is the only kind of 3D printer. We'll talk in a second about the different kinds, but this one right here is, let me zoom out, sorry, the FlashForge Adventurer 3 Lite. What's cool about it is it's enclosed, right? So you can, keep everything behind this door here. So if you have kids, as long as they don't open the door, granted it doesn't lock, and it doesn't stop if you open the door, they won't, be tempted, hopefully, to stick their hand in there and get burnt with burning plastic. So to take a step back, what exactly do 3D printers? What do 3D printers do? What kind of are out there for you? And what exactly would you make with them? So first of all, 3D printers. I mean, of course, if you've read the news, you probably have seen things about 3D printers, 3D printing, like circuit boards and body parts, although I think the body parts one is mainly science fiction. For regular people, generally speaking, what you're getting is a 3D printer that prints objects in plastic. And there's two main types of plastic. There's actually three. There is what's called PLA. I think that's polylactic, which is what I've been using. And there's ABS, which is a kind of plastic that a lot of people are familiar with. And then there's resin. Now, there's two different kinds of printers, major printers. What I showed you here is what's called an FDM, fused deposit system. And the way that it works is I'll show you here a spool. Take this spool out. I should have had one out. There's my spool. You have a spool, and what you do with your spool is what happened? Okay, the easiest way is for me to just show you the spool that's in here. So you see here on the side, you can see that I have a little spool here. And this spool is of PLA plastic. So what happens is the spool goes through the system, and it ends up in the head here, where it gets deposited onto this build plate here, layer by layer, until it becomes an object. And that is FDM are the most popular and probably easiest to work with type of 3D printer. There's also a type called Sla Stereolithography, and that uses resin in a container that you have to pour in, and it's the material is very toxic and caustic and whatever, so you have to use gloves and a mask, and you better make sure you don't splash that stuff. And then when you pour it in, it uses light to actually cause it to make a shape and build a model. And the SLA stuff does have slightly better quality, but the hassle of using it, the kind of more dangerousness of it, is why I think a lot of people don't like it. Now, FDM and both types of printer, both SLA and FDM, can actually be had for $200 or less. This model here that I really like, the FlashForge Adventurer 3 Lite, sells for $300 right now. It's a little bit more expensive than some because it comes pre-built. Some of the cheaper ones you actually have to put together yourself, and it's enclosed. And those, I think those are some good features. Now, if you're printing with ABS plastic, it does let off some fumes, and you have to be careful about ventilating the room because you're basically burning plastic. PLA is more of a natural material, so I don't worry about it at all. I don't even smell anything when it's going. So let me show you some of the things I've printed. So here is a creeper from Minecraft. Okay, it's a figure. I won't say like this is a great innovation to have a figure. Here is a Luigi that is actually a Nintendo Switch holder. So you can put a Nintendo Switch in his hands and it will hold it, or a tablet. Here is a case. This was made with orange filament. Here is a case, and if you open it up, it holds your Nintendo Switch cards, and it's made to look like one of those things in the Mario games. And here is another one that we were working on that's made to look like a Minecraft creeper, also a case. And this is a steering wheel that my son and I printed so we can put a Nintendo Joy-Con in it. And in certain games like Mario Kart 8, you can use them. And Nintendo actually makes a steering wheel like this for, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks. But we printed this with, a little bit of filament, and it took 3 hours, and decent. Now, you might be asking, okay, but do I really need to print some models and boxes? I think the thing is, what these are really good for is when you have something really bespoke that you need, a part, right? Oh, I really want, I have this robot and a little piece of it broke. Can I make a matching one? I have this, some small item, some small thing, some small piece of something that broke. Can I make a replacement part? And so I think that's a good use of it, creating boxes, creating custom models, things like that. And it's really not that expensive to get into. The filament is $15. It cost me $16 for half a kilogram. It's usually done by weight, right? So a half. So you figure out how much filament you're using. Something like this might use, I don't know, 10 or 20 grams of filament. So figure you have 0.5 kilograms, 500 grams for 15, 16 bucks. Is really not bad. It does take a while to print things, no doubt. A more complex project can take, quite a while. This took something like 6-7 hours to print. But that's as long as it keeps going and works, then you're good. Now, the other question you might have is, where do you have to design all these things yourself, or can you find a source of them? And there's a great source called Thingiverse, where there's a whole lot of free 3D models you can download and print or remix to look the way that you want. And so there's just a lot of possibilities for you here to do something fun, and maybe something cool. Now, the quality of the printing, I mean, you might ask, well, okay, but do I want to print something that's one color? Because that was one of my first complaints when I started learning about 3D printers. Is like, come on, man, I don't. I mean, couldn't I just buy something like this that's $5 and in full color? Um, I mean, sometimes you can't just buy something that's what you want, but they don't have to be a single color like this. What you can do is you can get primer and paint, and you can paint them like you would any model. Uh, and there's options there. There there isn't much in the way of affordable full color 3D printing because each roll of filament is a single color. So in order to have multiple colors, you would need to have something that either pulls from a whole lot of different filaments at once, or has a bunch of different heads, or has some type of an ink in the head to dye the filament as it comes through. There have been a few concepts like that out, but they're all well in the thousands of dollars. So for now, it's mostly a monochrome world. But I think it's at the point now where it's affordable. You can get 3D printers that are competent for under $200 and that are really good, like this one for $300. So, what do you think, Scott? Have you done much 3D printing?
Yeah. So uh, for a project that I've been working on, we have a development board. It's actually a pair of boards because one program you go through one to program the other, and that's annoying. You have to keep them together, and you have to, you know, keep them from touching so as not to short out circuitry, and keep them from touching metal things for exactly the same reason. And so I actually had had Chris over at Amrock do a design for me of a thing so that the main board sits like this on like a mount, and the other program board sits over top of it at an angle, so everything's there, and that was wonderful. And we used to use we did the year of the hurricane, which must have been 2018, when we were doing the robot in a weekend uh, at the mall. We 3D printed a ton of parts for the robot that we were building. So yeah, the idea of doing like custom bits and pieces is apps for me is absolutely where it's at. There was so much interest in the thing that we had done for that development board that colleagues wanted it. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you've had the problem, invariably somebody else may have
exactly.
too. Now, there's a lot of trial and error in this, and so that's where the frustration is, but that's also where the fun is, right? So, uh, my son and I had made a robot that was from a kit. It was the Pimoroni STS Pi robot, right? It's a robot on wheels, and it has a little camera mount that you use to put the camera in. And he broke a leg on the camera mount, which is just like a single piece of acrylic. So I was thinking, this is exactly the kind of thing you can 3D print. And I found that somebody had made a 3D model for this robot to replace the camera mount, but it wasn't to replace it with another camera mount. It was to replace it with something else.
Okay.
So I with this ultrasonic sensor. So I said, oh, I can take this and I can just like change where the holes are and use it for a camera. And I tried that, and it came out like half a millimeter too long. So I have to go back, see if I can shrink it, because I was counting on it to actually fit, and it was like this far away from fitting in the slot. But nevertheless, I mean, that's a good use of this. You have something, and some little piece breaks, and hey, can I make that little piece?
Right.
So that's and no waiting, right? Um, Obviously, these things are continuing to get better and easier, but it's I think it's a cool hobby to get into.
Yeah, for sure. I want to learn the modeling side of it. I did 3D modeling for animation, but that was in like the mid to late 90s, and I haven't in Lightwave, so people who are
Yeah,
older and
there.
did animation, you'll recognize the name, but that's about the extent of it. It ran on an Amiga, for God's sake. Um, but so I don't know that any of those skills are going to transfer, but at least my mind is capable of working in that 3D realm. Maybe I can apply some of that to it, but yeah, I feel like I'll definitely be starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean the self modeling part. I mean, I definitely found a challenge. There's some free tools out there, but they don't seem very good. Uh, I was using one, and one that's very popular, that's highly recommended, and it's web based, so you don't have to install anything, but it's not. There's no precision in it. So, like, you want to shrink something by like zero point 0.5 millimeters, and you can't just go and type, "Hey, give me this 0.5 millimeters less" or something. You got
Got
to
it.
drag everything. It's everything drag with you. It's a lot of things you just drag with your mouse and not allow you to actually like just give it the number that you want. Oh, you want to rotate this exactly 91 degrees. You better be really good at rotating your mouse. So, um, so I think there's a lot of, I have to find some better software that's easy enough to use for me to actually get great use out of it. Mostly, we have been finding things that other people have made and printing them so far.
Gotcha.
But obviously, the real beauty of it is not to just make cute models, but hey, I really need this particular thing. Let me try and make it.
Yeah, yeah. That's been the majority of my experience has been printing things that already existed, with the exception of you know other people doing things for me, which which is not obviously not quite the same thing. So
Right.
yeah, but it's definitely an interesting thing, and the idea that the printers are coming down in price so severely, because you know the maker bot that started this whole consumer interest in it at CES. I only remember it because their booth we could see from our studio the year that they showed it off the first time. Um, I mean, those things were stupid expensive, but we all knew that it was going to be a thing, and it definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not at the point of like everybody's going to use it right now, right? But it is a serious venture. There are people really into it. It is a pretty mature technology, and there's some great products out there. So I definitely recommend that folks check out our coverage on tomshardware.com, where we have a best 3D printers page, which lists all the cool stuff that you can, all the cool models you can get. And I really, really like this one that I have right here, which is one of our top picks, which is the FlashForge Adventurer 3 Lite, which is only $300. Granted, there are models that are even $200, but I think for getting a model that's enclosed, which is really nice, uh,
Yeah.
is really pretty easy to use, comes pre-assembled. A lot of the cheaper models, you've got to have some know-how and put it together yourself. So I think that personally, I think this is a really good one.
Yeah, after we talked a couple weeks ago, I mentioned it. Yeah, when we were talking after the show, and I mentioned it to Terry. I was like, I don't remember the name of it, and I gave her the bit that I could remember, and she's like, "Oh, is it this one?" Yeah, she goes, "Oh, it's a great one." So,
Yeah, it's good. They're coming out with a new model,
mhm.
although it's going to be twice as expensive. So not necessarily a replacement for this, called the Adventurer 4, which is going to have a built-in HEPA filter.
Yeah,
So what's interesting about that is and I'll just leave it at that, is, I do have a lot of concerns about inhaling toxic fumes,
Sure.
and that's a concern when you're melting styrene for ABS. And a lot of people like ABS, even though PLA is much safer and it sticks better to the bed and whatever. It doesn't have as much of a, it doesn't feel as much like a real plastic in some cases, or for some things, it just not as professional or whatever feeling. So having ABS is good for a lot of projects. So yeah, I mean, I can foresee using that, and then it has a fan and a filter built in, so supposedly it won't let the fumes out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool design change. But
Yeah,
obviously, like you said, it's not a direct replacement. It's
yeah, it's $800 instead of
yeah.
$300, and it has some other features too, like a bigger print bed. So,
Okay.
um, so there's that to consider.
Well, I you have gotten me more interested in messing around with it again. So uh, I'm gonna end up with one soon, I would imagine, because that's how things go. And obviously, I will be checking out what you guys say about them on Tom's Hardware, and checking in with Terry over at Amrock to see which one I want. And as always, Avram, I appreciate this. I always love talking about the things that you guys have going on over at Tom's Hardware, and I look forward to what we talk about next. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course hit the notification bell, since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.